Act as if you have no time left, not in fear, not in panic, but in a fierce, burning awareness that this moment is the only doorway through which life can enter. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the absolute certainty that everything you longed for must be lived today, spoken today, felt today, created today. Notice what would instantly disappear. The hesitation would vanish, the endless later would collapse, the excuses would look small and powerless, and what would rise in its place would be a strange electric clarity, a knowing that life is not waiting somewhere in the future, it is asking you to claim it now. Most people live as if time is an endless ocean. They postpone joy, postpone love, postpone boldness, postpone dreams. They speak as if tomorrow is guaranteed, as if another opportunity will always arrive. But tomorrow is not a promise, it is only an assumption. And because of that assumption, people shrink their lives. They hold back words they should speak. They tolerate circumstances they should transform. They delay becoming who they truly are. Acting as if you have no time left is not about dying, it is about finally living. When you truly feel that time is precious, your mind shifts. Suddenly you stop negotiating with fear. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop asking, what if I fail? And begin asking, what if I never try? And that question awakens power inside you. Because the greatest tragedy is not failure, the greatest tragedy is unused potential, dreams that never took form, and love that was never expressed. Think of how differently you would walk into your day if you knew you only had a limited number of sunrises left. You would not waste energy complaining about small inconveniences. You would not allow other people's opinions to imprison your actions. You would not sit silently when your heart is screaming to speak. You would not delay the phone call, the apology, the confession, the decision, the step forward. You would act with urgency, not rushed, not frantic, but deeply intentional. And here is the secret. The power is not in time itself, it is in the state of mind you enter when you realize time is limited. In that state, you become fearless because you see clearly that there is nothing to protect. The image you try to maintain, the approval you chase, the comfort you cling to, all that becomes insignificant compared to the desire to truly live. When you act as if you have no time left, you stop living in imagination's negative side. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios. Instead, you begin imagining fulfilled outcomes. You start asking, if this were my last chance, how would I show up? And the answer always leads to courage. You would show up fully. You would speak boldly. You would love openly. You would create without waiting for permission. Look at the way people behave when they believe time is abundant. They say, one day I will start. One day I will change. One day I will forgive. One day I will pursue my passion. But that one day is a trap. It keeps life suspended in the future. Acting as if you have no time left collapses that illusion. It forces you into the only point of power, the present moment. The present moment is not small. It is not ordinary. It is the creative center of your entire existence. Every decision is made here. Every feeling is generated here. Every transformation begins here. When you act from the awareness that this moment matters infinitely, your attention sharpens, your senses awaken, your energy intensifies. You begin to live deliberately instead of mechanically. Notice how different your relationships would become if you lived this way. You would listen more deeply. You would forgive more quickly. You would express appreciation without hesitation. You would stop assuming people know how you feel. You would speak love while you still have the chance. And that alone would change the entire quality of your life. Acting as if you have no time left also dissolves procrastination, because procrastination is rooted in the belief that there will always be another opportunity. But when you realize that opportunity only exists now, action becomes natural. You no longer force yourself to move, you simply see that waiting serves no purpose. This awareness also eliminates perfectionism. When you feel time is limited, you understand that imperfect action is far more powerful than perfect delay. You would rather create something real today than wait endlessly for something flawless that never arrives. You would rather speak truth imperfectly than remain silent forever. There is also a profound peace hidden in this mindset. When you stop postponing life, you stop carrying the heavy burden of someday. You release the pressure of unfinished dreams piling up in your mind. You feel lighter because you are no longer running from your own potential. You are stepping into it moment by moment. Imagine applying this to your inner world. If you had no time left, you would not waste energy holding on to resentment. You would not keep repeating negative thoughts. You would not entertain doubts about your worth. You would choose empowering beliefs immediately because you would understand that your inner state shapes your entire experience. Acting as if time is short also strengthens your focus. You stop scattering your energy across meaningless distractions. You stop investing attention in things that do not align with your true desires. Your mind becomes disciplined naturally, not through force, but through clarity. You simply know what matters and what does not. And something remarkable happens when you live this way. You begin to feel more alive than ever before. Colors appear brighter, conversations feel deeper, experiences become richer. This is because you are no longer living half present. You are fully engaged. You are awake. Many people think urgency creates stress, but true urgency creates freedom. It frees you from overthinking. It frees you from hesitation. It frees you from the endless cycle of doubt. Because when you truly understand that time is limited, you stop arguing with yourself. You simply move forward. This mindset also transforms your relationship with fear. Fear loses its authority because you see that avoiding fear costs you more than facing it. The cost of inaction becomes greater than the discomfort of action. And in that realization, courage is born. When you act as if you have no time left, you stop measuring your life by how safe you are and begin measuring it by how fully you are expressing yourself. You stop asking, "Am I protected?" and begin asking, "Am I alive?" That shift changes everything. You start taking opportunities that once intimidated you. You start speaking ideas that once remained hidden. You start pursuing paths that once seemed impossible. And with each step, you realize that life responds to boldness. It opens doors that hesitation never could. Living this way also brings extraordinary clarity about priorities. You see immediately what deserves your time and what does not. You understand that time is your most valuable resource, and you become selective about where you invest it. You begin to value experiences over possessions, growth over comfort, connection over approval. You understand that what truly matters is not how long you live, but how deeply you live. Acting as if you have no time left also awakens gratitude. You stop taking ordinary moments for granted. A simple conversation, a quiet sunrise, a shared laugh. These become precious because you no longer assume they will repeat endlessly. Gratitude, in turn, amplifies joy, and joy fuels motivation. You find yourself energized not by pressure but by appreciation. You act not because you are forced, but because you are inspired. Another powerful effect of this mindset is that it eliminates comparison. When you feel time is limited, you no longer waste energy measuring your life against others. You focus entirely on your own journey. You understand that your only responsibility is to fully express your unique potential. You become more decisive. Indecision is often rooted in the illusion that there is unlimited time to choose. But when you realize time is precious, you trust your instincts and move forward confidently. And as you continue living this way, a deep sense of fulfillment emerges, not because everything becomes perfect, but because you know you are no longer holding back, you are no longer waiting, you are no longer postponing your own life. You realize that the greatest power you possess is not in controlling the future, but in choosing how you show up now. And when you show up fully, when you act boldly, love openly, create freely, you discover that life itself begins to meet you with equal intensity. Doors open unexpectedly, opportunities appear, relationships deepen, not because time has changed, but because you have changed. You are no longer living passively, you are participating actively. Acting as if you have no time left is ultimately an awakening. It awakens your courage, your focus, your gratitude, your authenticity. It strips away illusions and reveals what truly matters. It reminds you that life is not something to be prepared for endlessly. It is something to be lived immediately. And when you embrace that truth, you stop existing and start truly living, fully, deeply, and without delay. When you begin to live from this awareness, you notice how much of your past behavior was built on the illusion of endless tomorrows. You see how often you delayed decisions, not because you lacked ability, but because you believed there would always be more time to correct mistakes later. And once that illusion fades, a new strength rises inside you. You stop drifting, you stop postponing. You step into a direct, deliberate way of living where every moment becomes an opportunity to move closer to what you truly desire. You also start to recognize that the greatest thief of life is not failure, but hesitation. Hesitation quietly steals years. It convinces you to wait until conditions are perfect, until you feel completely ready, until fear disappears. But if you lived as though time were limited, you would no longer wait for readiness. You would create readiness through action. You would understand that clarity comes after movement, not before it. Think of how differently you would pursue your dreams if you truly believed this year, this month, or even this week was your final chance to express them. You would not shrink your vision. You would not aim small. You would choose boldly because you would realize that living cautiously does not protect you. It only reduces the depth of your experience. When you act from this urgency, your mind stops wandering into endless distractions. You become intensely present in whatever you do. If you are working, you work with full focus. If you are resting, you rest without guilt. If you are speaking to someone, you give them your full attention. You stop dividing yourself between past regrets and future anxieties, because you understand that your power exists only in this exact moment. And something fascinating begins to happen inside you. Your intuition becomes clearer. When you are no longer overwhelmed by endless choices and imagined futures, your inner voice becomes easier to hear. You begin to trust it. You begin to move with a quiet confidence that does not come from certainty about outcomes, but faith, raw certainty about your willingness to act. This way of living also dissolves the habit of seeking constant approval. When time feels limited, you no longer have the luxury to live someone else's version of life. You stop shaping your actions around other people's expectations. You start asking yourself one simple question: if I truly had no time left, would I still choose this path? And that question cuts through confusion with extraordinary clarity. You also stop carrying emotional burdens that once felt heavy. Grudges lose their meaning, old arguments lose their importance. You begin to see that holding on to resentment consumes the very time you claim is precious. So you release it, not because others deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. As you continue to live this way, you develop an unshakable sense of purpose. You no longer wander aimlessly from one distraction to another. You become anchored by a deep understanding of what truly matters to you. And this purpose gives your life a sense of direction that no external circumstance can easily disturb. You also begin to take responsibility for your inner state with greater seriousness. If time is limited, you cannot afford to spend days trapped in negativity. You become more intentional about what you think, what you believe, and what you focus on. You begin to choose thoughts that strengthen you instead of weaken you. When you adopt this mindset, even ordinary actions become meaningful. A simple decision to begin something you once feared becomes a powerful declaration that you refuse to waste your life. A small step forward becomes an act of courage. A single honest conversation becomes a moment of transformation. You stop measuring your days by how comfortable they are and start measuring them by how alive you felt within them. You begin to ask yourself, not was today easy, but was today meaningful? And that shift alone changes the entire direction of your life. Living as if time is limited also removes the illusion that your life will someday begin. Many people live in preparation mode, constantly waiting for the right moment to truly start living. But when you act from urgency, you realize that life is already happening. There is no rehearsal, there is no later stage where everything suddenly becomes real. This moment is the stage, and you are already in the performance. You begin to understand that waiting for ideal conditions is another form of avoidance. Perfect conditions rarely arrive, but decisive action creates momentum, and momentum creates opportunities that did not exist before. So instead of waiting for life to change before you act first, and life changes in response. This awareness also strengthens your resilience. When you stop assuming unlimited time, you become less afraid of temporary setbacks. You see challenges as part of the process rather than reasons to quit. You understand that the true loss would not be failing, but never attempting at all. You also begin to value growth more than comfort. Comfort becomes less attractive when you realize how quickly time moves. You start seeking experiences that challenge you, stretch you, and expand your abilities. You recognize that discomfort is often the doorway to transformation. As this mindset deepens, you become more present not only with others but with yourself. You begin or listen to your own needs more carefully. You stop ignoring your desires. You stop silencing your inner voice. You treat your own dreams as urgent, important, and worthy of attention. And because you are no longer delaying life, you experience a powerful sense of momentum. Each action you take reinforces your confidence. Each step forward proves to you that you are capable of shaping your reality. And this growing confidence creates a cycle where action leads to belief, and belief leads to even greater action. You also begin to realize how much time is often lost in worrying about outcomes that may never occur. When you live with urgency, you do not eliminate planning, but you eliminate excessive worry. You focus more on what you can do now than on what might happen later. You invest energy in action instead of speculation. Your perception of time itself changes. Days no longer blur together in routine monotony. Each day becomes distinct because you are fully engaged within it. You remember experiences more vividly because you are truly present when they occur. You also become more courageous in expressing your authentic self. You stop hiding your ideas, your talents, your opinions. You stop shrinking to fit expectations. You recognize that suppressing who you are is one of the greatest ways to waste time. And as you live this way, you begin to inspire others, not through words, but through example. People notice your decisiveness, your presence, your authenticity. They feel the energy of someone who is fully alive, someone who refuses to postpone life. You also develop a deep appreciation for simplicity. When you understand the value of time, you stop complicating your life unnecessarily. You let go of trivial conflicts, excessive distractions, and meaningless obligations. You focus on what truly enriches your experience. Even your sense of identity begins to shift. You no longer see yourself as someone who is trying to live fully. You see yourself as someone who is actively living now. That identity strengthens your behavior because you begin to act consistently with it. You also become more aware of how your thoughts shape your experience of time. When your mind is scattered and unfocused, time feels wasted. But when your attention is fully present, even a short moment feels rich and expansive. This awareness leads you to value quality over quantity. You realize that a single deeply lived moment can be more meaningful than years spent half present. And this understanding encourages you to bring full awareness into everything you do. You begin to notice how much of life's richness exists in simple moments: a conversation, a creative idea, a quiet reflection, a step toward a goal. And because you are no longer rushing through life unconsciously, you actually experience these moments fully. Living with urgency also makes you more adaptable. You stop resisting change because you understand that change is inevitable and time is limited. You become more willing to adjust your path quickly rather than clinging to outdated plans. You also become less attached to past mistakes. When you realize time is precious, you no longer spend years replaying regrets. You learn from them quickly and move forward, focusing on what you can do now instead of what you cannot change. And as this mindset becomes natural, you start to experience a profound sense of alignment. Your actions match your intentions, your words match your feelings, your time is spent in ways that reflect your true priorities. You no longer live divided between what you want and what you do. You live in integration where your daily behavior expresses your deepest values. This way of living does not mean rushing through life anxiously. It means moving with intention, clarity, and presence. It means recognizing that each moment carries immense value and treating it accordingly. You begin to see time not as an enemy to fight or a resource to hoard, but as a constant invitation to participate fully in life. Every moment becomes an opportunity to express courage, love, creativity, and purpose. And as you continue to live from this awareness, you realize that the true transformation is not in the amount of time you have, but in how consciously you choose to use it. You begin to notice that when you live with this intensity of awareness, even your energy changes. You no longer drag yourself through the day as if life is something to endure. Instead, you move with a quiet alertness, as though every hour is an opportunity that cannot be wasted. Your posture shifts, your voice carries more conviction, your decisions become sharper. It is not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you stop treating it casually. This mindset also removes the habit of waiting for motivation. Many people spend years waiting to feel ready before they act. But when you understand the value of time, you realize that action itself creates motivation. You begin before you feel confident. You move forward before certainty arrives. And through movement, your energy rises naturally. You start to see how much time is often lost in overthinking. Endless analysis, repeated doubts, constant second guessing, these quietly consume days, months, even years. But when you act as if time is limited, you do not eliminate thinking, you eliminate excessive thinking. You think clearly, decide quickly, and move forward with commitment. This way of living also deepens your connection with your own potential. You stop underestimating yourself because you realize you cannot afford to live below your capabilities. You begin to push beyond self-imposed limits, not out of pressure, but out of a desire to fully experience what you are capable of becoming. And something powerful happens to your sense of confidence. Confidence no longer comes from guarantees of success. It comes from knowing that you are no longer holding back. You trust yourself because you see your own willingness to act. You see that you are no longer controlled by hesitation, and that realization alone creates a strong inner stability. You also begin to experience time differently in moments of challenge. Difficult situations no longer feel endless because you know everything is temporary. Instead of resisting discomfort, you move through it with focus, understanding that even struggle is part of living fully. This awareness also changes how you approach learning. You no longer delay acquiring new skills or knowledge. You become curious and proactive because you understand that every day you wait is a day of potential growth lost. Learning becomes urgent in the best possible way. It becomes something you actively pursue instead of something you postpone. You begin to not ice that when you act with this level of intention, your productivity increases naturally. You waste less time switching between distractions. You complete tasks more efficiently because your attention is fully engaged. You do not work longer, you work more consciously. At the same time, you become more comfortable with rest. Because you are fully present in action, you are also fully present in recovery. When you rest, you truly rest without guilt or anxiety, because you know you have used your time meaningfully. Living this way also strengthens your emotional resilience. When challenges arise, you do not collapse into discouragement for long periods. You recover faster because you understand that time spent stuck in negativity cannot be reclaimed. You allow yourself to feel emotions, but you do not remain trapped in them. You also begin to express your creativity more freely. Many people hide their creative ideas out of fear of judgment or failure. But when you live with urgency, you see that unexpressed creativity is wasted life energy. You begin sharing your ideas, building projects, and exploring possibilities without waiting for perfection. This mindset also changes how you set goals. Your goals become clearer and more aligned with what truly matters to you. You no longer chase goals simply to impress others or to follow societal expectations. You pursue goals that genuinely excite and fulfill you. And because you are acting consistently, you begin to see results faster. Progress that once seemed slow becomes steady and visible. This progress reinforces your belief in the power of decisive action. You also develop a greater appreciation for time spent with other RS. You stop taking people for granted. You listen more carefully, speak more honestly, and show presence more fully. Conversations become deeper because you are not distracted by thoughts of later. Even your perception of obstacles changes. What once looked like barriers now appear as temporary conditions that require action. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What can I do about this right now?" You start to recognize that urgency does not eliminate patience, it refines it. You become patient with long-term results but impatient with inaction. You accept that meaningful change takes time, but you do not delay the steps required to create that change. You also become more intentional about how you spend your attention. You reduce exposure to negativity that drains your energy. You become selective about what you watch, what you listen to, and what you allow to influence your mind. As this awareness deepens, you feel a growing sense of inner freedom. You no longer feel trapped by routines that do not serve you. You no longer tolerate situations that keep you stagnant. You recognize that staying stuck is a choice you no longer wish to make. You begin to notice how often fear exaggerates risks. When you actually act, you discover that many fears were illusions created by your mind. This realization strengthens your courage and reduces the power fear once held over you. Living with urgency also sharpens your intuition about opportunities. You become quicker to recognize moments that can lead to growth. You say yes more often to experiences that expand you, and no more quickly to those that drain you. You also become more adaptable on plans change unexpectedly. Instead of feeling frustrated, you adjust quickly because you understand that flexibility allows you to continue moving forward without losing momentum. Your sense of discipline strengthens naturally. You no longer rely solely on external pressure to stay consistent. Your awareness of time itself becomes your strongest motivator. You also begin to feel a deeper connection to your own life story. You no longer see yourself as drifting through events randomly. You see yourself as actively shaping each chapter through conscious choices. As you continue living this way, you notice that regret begins to fade from your experience, not because everything becomes perfect, but because you know you are no longer withholding effort. You are showing up fully, and that removes the painful question of what if. You also develop a strong sense of responsibility for your own happiness. You stop waiting for external conditions to make you feel fulfilled. You actively create experiences, relationships, and habits that bring meaning into your life. Even your perception of failure transforms. Failure becomes information rather than identity. You see it as feedback guiding your next action instead of a reason to stop. You begin to experience a quiet pride in your daily life, not because of grand achievements, but because of consistent, intentional living. You feel satisfaction simply from knowing you are using your time wisely. And gradually you realize that acting as if you have no time left is not about urgency alone. It is about presence. It is about living so fully in each moment that time itself feels richer, deeper, and more expansive. You stop counting how many years you might have and start focusing on how deeply you are living each day. You measure life not in duration, but in intensity of experience, clarity of purpose, and authenticity of expression. This awareness keeps expanding within you, influencing every decision, every interaction, every thought, guiding you toward a way of living where you no longer postpone what truly matters, where each moment becomes an opportunity to step forward without hesitation, without delay, and without holding anything back, as you continue moving through your life with deliberate presence and unwavering intention, constantly choosing action over delay, expression over suppression, and full engagement over passive existence, allowing each day to become a powerful demonstration of what it means to truly live while you still can, while you still have the chance to act, to create, to speak, to change, to move, to grow, and to step forward again and again without waiting for some distant future to give you permission to begin. You begin to understand that the real transformation is happening quietly within your perception. The world around you has not changed. The hours in a day have not increased. And yet everything feels different because you are no longer drifting through time unconsciously. You are meeting each moment directly as though it matters deeply because in truth it does. And this awareness sharpens your senses in a way that makes life feel more vivid than it ever did before. You notice that when you act with this sense of urgency, your mind becomes less tolerant of empty distractions. Activities that once consumed hours without meaning begin to lose their grip on you. You no longer feel satisfied by passive entertainment or repetitive habits that leave you feeling hollow. Instead, you naturally gravitate toward actions that create movement, growth, and genuine engagement. Even your conversations change. You no longer speak just to fill silence. Your words carry intention. You choose honesty over politeness when truth matters. You stop delaying important discussions because you recognize that unspoken words often become the heaviest regrets. You express appreciation more freely. You offer encouragement more openly. You say what truly matters while you still can. This awareness also alters your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of fearing the unknown, you begin to accept it as an unavoidable part of existence. You realize that waiting for complete certainty is another way of postponing life. So you step forward even when the outcome is unclear, trusting that movement itself will reveal the path. You start to feel a powerful alignment between your inner desires and your outer actions. Before, you may have known what you wanted but hesitated to pursue it. Now, that gap begins to close. Your behavior starts to reflect your true priorities. You no longer betray your own aspirations by delaying them. And as you continue living this way, you notice how quickly momentum builds. Small actions taken consistently begin to produce visible results. Opportunities seem to appear more frequently, not because they suddenly exist, but because you are now alert enough to recognize them and bold enough to act on them immediately. You also become more protective of your mental space. You realize that time is not only measured in hours, but in attention. Every thought you entertain is a portion of your life energy. And with this awareness, you become more selective about what you allow to occupy your mind. You stop replaying past mistakes endlessly. You stop imagining negative scenarios that may never occur. Instead, you direct your focus toward possibilities that inspire movement. You train your mind to serve your life rather than sabotage it. There is also a noticeable shift in how you handle pressure. When time feels limited, you no longer panic under stress. Instead, you simplify. You focus on the next step rather than the entire mountain ahead. You act one moment at a time, understanding that consistent small actions create large transformations. You begin to notice that the fear of judgment fades significantly. When you truly accept the value of time, other people's opinions lose their power over you. You no longer shape your life around external approval. You prioritize authenticity because you recognize that pretending to be someone else is one of the greatest wastes of life. This awareness also deepens your connection with your own creativity. Ideas that once remained trapped in your mind begin to take form. You write, build, design, speak, and create without waiting for perfect conditions. You treat creativity as an urgent expression rather than an optional activity, and something remarkable happens within your sense of identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is planning to live fully someday. You begin to see yourself as someone who is actively living now. This shift changes your self-image profoundly, and your behavior naturally aligns with it. You also become more conscious of how quickly habits shape your life. Because you are aware of time, you no longer allow destructive patterns to continue unchecked. You replace them with habits that support your growth, your energy, and your purpose. Even your tolerance for mediocrity decreases. You no longer accept environments that suppress your potential. You begin to seek challenges that stretch you, experiences that teach you, and connections that uplift you. Living with this urgency also strengthens your emotional awareness. You become more honest with yourself about how you feel. You stop ignoring dissatisfaction. Instead, you use it as information guiding you toward necessary changes. You start to notice that when you act immediately on important matters, your mind becomes calmer. Procrastination creates tension because unfinished tasks linger in your awareness, but decisive action releases that tension and replaces it with a sense of progress. You also become more appreciative of the present moment's simplicity. You realize that life is not only about achieving grand goals, it is also about experiencing ordinary moments fully. A walk, a conversation, a quiet thought. These become meaningful because you are fully present within them. Your patience with slow progress also deepens. You no longer demand instant results, but you also refuse to delay consistent effort. You find balance between urgency in action and calmness in expectation. And gradually, you begin to feel a steady inner confidence, not loud, not aggressive, but deeply rooted. It comes from knowing that you are no longer avoiding your own life. You are participating fully in it. You also become more comfortable taking risks, not reckless risks, but necessary ones. You understand that growth requires stepping beyond familiarity. And because you no longer assume unlimited time, you choose growth over stagnation. This mindset also changes how you respond to unexpected events. Instead of resisting change, you adapt quickly. You see each new situation as another opportunity to act consciously rather than react unconsciously. You begin to notice that your awareness of time naturally increases your sense of gratitude. You feel thankful not only for major achievements, but for simple experiences, health, opportunities, connections, learning. You also develop a deeper sense of responsibility for your own direction. You stop blaming circumstances, past events, or other people for where you are. You focus entirely on what you can do now to move forward. And as this awareness continues expanding within you, your daily life starts to feel more intentional, more focused, more alive, as though every decision carries weight, every moment holds potential, and every action becomes an opportunity to step closer to a life that is not postponed, not delayed, not reserved for some distant future, but lived fully here and now, with a constant recognition that time is moving, that moments are passing, and that the only true power you possess is the ability to act immediately, consciously, and completely within the present before it slips quietly into memory. You begin to sense that this way of living creates a kind of inner intensity that is not stressful but deeply energizing. It feels like a steady flame inside you, reminding you to remain awake to your own existence. You no longer drift through hours in a half-conscious state. Instead, you become aware of how each minute carries the potential to shape your direction, your identity, and your experience of life itself. You notice that your choices become simpler. When you ask yourself, if time were short, would this truly matter? Many unnecessary worries disappear instantly. Arguments that once consumed your energy feel trivial. Minor inconveniences no longer dominate your attention. You begin to conserve your mental and emotional strength for what genuinely moves your life forward. This awareness also reshapes how you view opportunities. Before, you might have hesitated, wondering whether to wait for something better or safer. Now you understand that opportunities are rarely perfect. They are often imperfect openings that require courage to enter. And because you no longer assume unlimited time, you become quicker to step through those openings. You start to trust momentum more than planning alone. You still think carefully, but you no longer overplan to the point of paralysis. You take action earlier, knowing that progress reveals information that planning alone never can. There is also a noticeable shift in how you experience daily routines. Tasks that once felt repetitive now carry a quiet sense of importance. You perform them with attention rather than indifference. Even small actions, organizing your space, completing a responsibility, starting a new effort, become meaningful because they reflect your commitment to living consciously. Your emotional life also becomes clearer. When you stop postponing, you no longer suppress feelings that need expression. You address issues directly instead of allowing them to linger. You communicate honestly rather than storing unspoken thoughts that slowly drain your energy. And as you continue living this way, you begin to realize that time awareness creates freedom rather than restriction. Instead of feeling pressured, you feel liberated from illusions. You no longer believe that you can delay becoming who you truly are. That realization pushes you toward authenticity. You also develop a deeper appreciation for beginnings. You stop waiting for perfect starting points. You begin projects when they are imperfect, conversations when they feel uncomfortable, and changes when they feel uncertain. You recognize that starting is often the most powerful step you can take. This mindset gradually dissolves the fear of making mistakes. You see clearly that mistakes are inevitable in a fully lived life. The only true mistake is refusing to act at all, and this understanding allows you to move forward without excessive self-criticism. You also begin to notice how time awareness increases your ability to concentrate. Because you value each moment, you naturally resist distractions that once scattered your attention. Your mind becomes sharper, your focus stronger, and your productivity more consistent. Living this way also deepens your sense of connection to the present environment. You become more observant. You notice details you once overlooked. The tone of a voice, the rhythm of your breath, the subtle shifts in your surroundings. Life feels richer because you are actually experiencing it instead of rushing past it. You start to understand that urgency does not mean constant activity, it means conscious engagement. Sometimes that engagement looks like decisive action. Other times it looks like stillness, reflection, or careful observation. But in all cases, you are fully present rather than mentally absent. You also become more honest about how you spend your time. You stop telling yourself comforting stories about later. You evaluate whether your actions align with your true priorities, and when they do not, you adjust more quickly. This awareness strengthens your discipline in subtle ways. You do not rely solely on motivation because motivation fluctuates. Instead, you rely on clarity. The clear understanding that every moment you use wisely contributes to the life you want to experience. You begin to feel a growing sense of alignment between your intentions and your actions. You say what you mean and follow through on what you decide. This consistency builds trust in yourself, and that trust becomes a powerful source of inner stability. Your resilience also deepens. When setbacks occur, you recover faster because you are less attached to delay. You quickly shift from frustration to problem solving. You ask, "What can I do now?" rather than dwelling on what went wrong. You also become more willing to let go of things that no longer serve you. Old habits, outdated goals, limiting beliefs, these gradually fall away because you recognize that carrying them wastes your limited energy. Living with this awareness makes you more attentive to the flow of your own life. You begin to see patterns more clearly. You notice what energizes you and what drains you. You make adjustments accordingly, refining how you live day by day. You also develop a stronger sense of ownership over your decisions. You stop waiting for external validation before moving forward. You trust your judgment because you know that indecision costs more than imperfect action. Your appreciation for progress grows as well. You celebrate small improvements rather than waiting for dramatic results. Each step forward becomes meaningful because it represents conscious effort. You begin to notice how much of life's richness lies in engagement rather than achievement alone. The process of working towards something becomes as fulfilling as the outcome itself because you are fully present within it. You also become more intentional about the legacy you are creating through your daily actions. Not a distant abstract legacy, but the immediate impact you have on people, projects, and experiences around you. As this awareness continues expanding, you feel an increasing sense of urgency to align your outer life with your inner truth. You stop tolerating long gaps between what you believe and how you live. And gradually, this way of living transforms your entire relationship with time. It no longer feels like something slipping away uncontrollably. It feels like a series of living moments waiting to be claimed fully, each one inviting you to act, to express, to decide, to move forward without hesitation, reminding you again and again that the power to shape your experience exists only here, only now, only in the actions you choose to take while the moment is still alive in your hands, before it quietly passes into memory and becomes another opportunity that either was fully lived or silently allowed to fade.